afternoon, guys. It's good to be here. My name is Evans. I'm the Chief Digital and Information Officer for MyBucks. And I guess the way that I'll start just talking about what we're doing. So we're a fintech present right here in South Africa and in various other African countries and European countries as well. But I'll just start by basically highlighting a quote that I like by Steve Jobs, which says, you have to start with the customer experience and work backwards to the technology as you create amazing experiences for customers. And I think you'll have heard from the other speakers that have spoken, they've talked about how in the fintech world, the leverage of digital experiences and the leverage of technology, the leverage of various things is actually being driven really well in a way that actually disrupts customer experiences and creates something amazing from a customer viewpoint. So in MyBucks, we like to implement what we call DDLA, which is be design-led and be customer-focused, be data-informed in terms of the decisions that you make, be lean in the processes that you execute, and be agile in terms of your execution with your various teams. So what we like to talk about ourselves is the fact that we're a South African company based in Pretoria with a presence in various markets, as you'll see sort of like in the on the map here. And we are living the mega trends. And the question is, which mega trends are we actually living? So things such as artificial intelligence, big data, chatbots, cloud, open APIs, biometrics, and so on, we're living those mega trends. With what we show here is basically our architecture and our proprietary system that allows us to do this with the leverage of things such as open APIs. So very specifically, you look at our continent and you find that there are people who are, we talk about financial inclusion, and you actually start seeing that there are many people who are actually digitally financially invisible, which means when you go to Kampala in Uganda or in Harare in Zimbabwe and so on, you find people that are buying eggs in the morning, they boil those eggs, they sell them, they actually have money movement and they have financial activity happening, but it's not recorded in any credit bureau, which makes it difficult to then lend to them and actually start to offer them offerings from a lending viewpoint. So enter our first algorithm. Her name is Jessie. Jessie is an algorithm that we wrote. What she does is she looks at alternative sources of data, which in the absence of credit bureaus and so on, looking at mobile phone data, and she actually makes credit decisions. And she actually looks at a customer's probability of default and will make credit decisions based on what Jessie actually says. But obviously, having a credit decision algorithm, we also need the other algorithm that we have, which is her brother. His name is Dexter. Dexter is the bouncer who does fraud detection and prevention. So what he does is he looks for the fraudulent customers, the bad customers who are trying to actually hack the systems and to actually get into bad transactions. So with those, the architecture in mind, with the algorithms in mind, here's a use case of something that we put together. So we decided to go into the Kenya market, and we created this app called Haraka. Haraka in Swahili means quickly. So what we decided to do is we created this as an Android app, which allows a customer to download the app. They can apply for a loan, a small loan, and we use Jessie to make a credit decision, use Dexter to make a fraud decision, use our loan proprietary system to actually go through the whole loan management process and disburse into their M-Pesa mobile money wallet. Everything done in 2.5 minutes. It's live in Kenya. It's live now in Zimbabwe. It's live now in Uganda. It's live now in Tanzania, and it's also live now in Swaziland. So our first country where we actually proved this application was Kenya, and then we followed with those 4 additional countries where we're now live as we speak. We've taken the same approach in terms of our presence here in the South African market. We're actually doing digital lending, so we have no branches here in South Africa. We actually have our headquarters based in Pretoria, but we have no branches anywhere else. And we're actually doing digital lending, where it's a 100% digital experience. A customer can download our app and actually choose to apply for a loan. In South Africa, we do ask for documentation so they can upload the documents and we go through that whole process. Or they can actually go onto our website, and they can also apply for a loan on the website. You'll see things such as budgeting tools and credit reports mentioned here for the South Africa rendition, because there's such a good presence of credit bureaus, etc., within the South African environment, so we can do that. But in markets where we don't have those kinds of data points, we're able to actually service customers without them. A first, WhatsApp lending. So now we've just deployed our WhatsApp lending capability, which actually allows customers to get onto WhatsApp and actually interact with a bot at the back end to actually go through an experience of applying for a loan, enter their details, and be able to get it. Something we can do with humans, something we can actually do with bots as well. We were at this same conference just a few weeks ago, and we won the Best EU Financial Inclusion Company 2017, and we're hoping to also do the same in terms of the lending piece here in Africa. But with that said, what you see, the screen you see here is our digital bank. We've just launched a digital bank where we've actually created an end-to-end experience where a customer can actually do onboarding and begin to transact end-to-end on an app. And we're working with a specific regulator in an African country where we're actually deploying this. So we've soft launched by invitation only as we actually prove the case and work with the regulator for a November launch that we're working on. In some markets, we actually noticed that the smartphones are not prevalent. So we actually created a MyBucks phone, which you see there, which is basically, it looks like this. It's a very, very cheap phone. Battery life runs for almost a week. So it uses feature phone strengths, but actually runs an Android operating system, which allows us to actually then run the apps and do the value-added services that I've just talked about. So who are we? We have now in excess of 1.5 million customers, live customers who are actually transacting in 15 countries. 12 of those countries are in Africa, which you see up here. And then we also have a presence in Australia and Poland and Spain. We're listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, and we have a market cap of 2.6 billion rands. Multiple brands, banking, insurance, and lending. And that's the team. And in case you can't see me, I'm the guy with the purple shirt. Everybody else got the memo for the blue and white shirts, but I didn't, so I wore the purple shirt. Thank you.
Thank you, Evans. 5-minute Q&A from the judges.
Hi.
Hello.
So you've shown what your total loan book is. Across how many transactions was that? I'm trying to understand the average lend per region.
Yeah, so the average, the transaction values are pretty, they're pretty small loans. So for example, in South Africa, they range around sort of like the sub 4,000 Rand transaction size. And within the South African space, you're looking at about a total of about 700,000 customers or so. So our presence is actually biggest from a lending viewpoint within South Africa. And then you start getting into Zimbabwe, which is also a good captive market for us. And then you start getting into the likes of Mozambique and Uganda, and they start getting smaller as you move forward.
There were actually a set of questions, but you just started answering straight away.
Sorry. Sorry.
If you can just answer the following: average length of loan, bad debt rate, and recovery rate.
So the average length of the loans, so they range. So they're between 30 to 45 days in duration. What you find is with the different products, so what I actually showed you was two major products. One which is in South Africa, the standard product, which ranges from 30 to 45 days. And then with Haraka, it's also a 30 to 45 day length product. But most of the customers are actually paying off this product in about 7 days. So they're actually using it, when you start looking at the uses, it's almost like working capital. They're borrowing, they're using the money, and then they're repaying it, and then they're borrowing again and repaying and so on. What was the next question?
Bad debt rate and recovery rate.
So I'll get some help here. So basically, we're at a 7.5% default rate with our customers, and that's where we stand.
Thanks, Evans. When you move into markets like Kenya and you're serving these customers, do they have to have a bank account, or can they just apply for a loan?
They can just apply for a loan. So specifically so we've got two products. We've got the Haraka product, which is targeting the financial inclusion space. So it's specifically saying we're going in knowing customers do not have bank accounts. So it's targeting customers that actually don't have bank accounts.
And then how are you differentiating from Branch and Tala and those players in that market?
So what we're doing is we're trying to bring sort of like the holistic view, which says, we're starting to take deposits, for example, in some of these markets. So we've actually applied for banking licenses in many of the markets. So in markets like Zimbabwe, we have a banking license and we are taking deposits. In markets like Mozambique, we have a banking license, we're taking deposits. Mozambique, Uganda, Swaziland, and so on. So what we do is by doing that, it allows us to then start adjusting the sort of like the rates that we can offer because the cost of funding begins to become more attractive. In other instances where we have to move funds, the cost of funding obviously is higher. But one of the things that we're now adding is, I didn't talk about it, but it's both gamification and educational services that actually help people with the financial literacy and the understanding, so what is credit, and how do you actually get to earn more so you can borrow more. So we've gamified sort of like what we call levels of trust. So people don't have credit scores, but when they get into our app, they have a level of trust score. And as you get a loan, you pay it off, then you see your trust level increases. And then we actually gamify behavior and we're differentiating ourselves in those ways.
How dependent are you on mobile network data in order for your credit scoring on the Haraka product to actually work?
Yeah,
Are you
so
tied into them?
Yeah, so on Haraka, there's that's sort of like the thing that slows us down. It's the MNO integration. So there's a lot of dependency on partnering with the MNOs. So in Kenya, we're able to be successful because of the stuff we did with the M-Pesa guys and Safaricom guys. In Zimbabwe, we actually we talk about the fact that we have 1,000 agents up there. So we actually have our own agent network in Zimbabwe, but we actually found it necessary to then integrate with the MNO in Zimbabwe. So the first one we did was with Net1. So once we integrate with them, it becomes easier for us from a data viewpoint as well as a disbursement viewpoint, because now you can actually send money into the stores of value that customers are used to interacting with. So we're doing lots of partnerships with the MNOs. Yeah.
I have a question. I have two questions. In terms of your growth, do you know how many of your growth goes to existing customers to repeat transactions or new customers to see the extent of the...
Yeah, so about 60% of our customer transactions are repeats. So it's a customer, once they get in, then they become a repeat. And we've actually also seen our referral program starting to work quite a bit, where customers will tell other people about the fact that they've had the transactions. So most of what we've done has not been at the back of massive marketing budgets or marketing activities. It's been very, very basic Facebook awareness activities, a little bit of television in some markets, but then it becomes one customer telling the other customer.
And then a random one. Have you distributed dividends from your company?
No, we have, no.
No.
So just to be fair, we just recently listed. So we're a recently listed company.
Thank you. A quick question. What are the next countries or markets in Africa you're looking to penetrate? And if these countries has to have an M-Pesa kind of infrastructure in order for you, or to be easier for you to be there?
Yeah, so we sort of like have two, it's a very interesting question. We have two parallel activities happening. So there are countries where we already have some kind of presence, where it actually makes sense for us to go into. So those countries include your Botswanas, your Mozambiques, your Ugandas, your Tanzanias, your Zimbabwe's, your Namibias, and so on. So all of those make a lot of sense for us. New markets that we've entered recently, Australia was a recent acquisition that we just did. So to enter that market, we decided to actually go acquire. So what we're doing is we're basically looking at countries that have affinities with emerging markets, which look and smell like emerging markets, and those are the ones we penetrate. Our focus is obviously Africa, and then as we look at it, we start getting into the likes of the other sort of like Southeastern Europe markets and so on. But one thing that we're having to do a lot of, which I didn't talk about, is do USSD activities, because for a lot of these markets, while the apps are good and while we're doing things such as getting the phones and trying to give away phones with loans and so on, there's a massive USSD presence based on feature phones and so on. So we're actually also rolling out USSD products into all those markets. Yeah.
In your territories where you have banking licenses, how do you physically take deposits? And secondly, in the European app, do you accept multiple currencies and cryptocurrency?
So we're not in crypto yet, but we're actually working on with something going right now, which might look like a coin type offering, but we're doing something on the whole crypto blockchain space in behind the scenes. In terms of the banking countries, to be honest with you, we found it a bit easier to get a banking license in Zimbabwe and also in Zambia. So we did an organic license application, actually built a bank from scratch in those markets. But in other markets, it's actually been easier to actually go find an existing bank which is not profitable, which is small, buy it, and then begin to grow the offering at the back of that. Through branch networks that already existed with the acquisitions that we made. Yeah.
Thank you. We have to wrap it up. Thank you very much, Evans.
Thank you.
I'll leave it with you.